Hey, Tell, I'm about to go grab my water. I'll be right back, and then we shall begin. Okay, how are you doing tonight, Telt? I am so exhausted, but I'm not tired. I'm just so incredibly mentally drained that I would like to just keel over and sleep. But mentally sleep. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. So instead, we are going to read some Scythe. Because it's been a little bit. Now, Classy is dreading going to work tomorrow. Oh dear. Classy is currently live as well. I'm lurking in his chat. Whew. Alrighty, get a drink of my water. Horizontal, vertical at the same time. Yours, don't care. Alright, now that I've got the vocal cords all stretched and ready, it is time for Scythe. I do not remember where we were when we last left off, but we are in chapter 25, Proxy of Death. Let's begin. Let me know if the audio is good, if it's bad, if it needs a little bit of tuning. This is a new room, So please, let me know if anything needs changing, okay? Here we go. The engineer liked to believe that his work at magnetic propulsion laboratories was useful, even though it had always appeared pointless. Magnetic trains were already moving as efficiently as they could. Applications for private transportation needed little more than tweaking. There was no more new and improved. There was just the trick of different, new styles, and advertisements to convince that stylish was all the rage, but the basic technology remained exactly the same. In theory, however, there were new uses that were yet to be tapped, or else why would the Thunderhead put them to work? There were project managers who knew more about the ultimate goal of the work they did, but no one had all the pieces. Still, there was speculation. It had long been believed that a combination of solar, wind, and magnetic propulsion would be required to move about in space with any efficiency. True, the prospect of space travel had been out of favor for many years, but that didn't mean it would always be. There had once been missions to colonize Mars, to explore Jupiter's moons, and even to launch to the stars beyond, but every mission had ended up in utter and disastrous failure. Ships blew up, colonists died, and in deep space, death meant death, just as completely as if they had been gleaned. The idea of irrevocable death without the controlled hand of a scythe was too much to bear for a world that had conquered mortality. The public outcry shut down all space exploration. Earth was our sole home, and would remain so. Which is why, the engineer suspected, the Thunderhead moved forward on these projects so carefully and so slowly as to not draw the public's attention. It was by no means underhanded, because the Thunderhead was incapable of underhandedness. It was merely discreet, wisely discreet. One day, perhaps the Thunderhead would announce that while everyone was looking the other way, humanity had achieved a sustainable presence beyond the bounds of planet Earth. The engineer looked forward to that day, and fully expected he'd live to see it. He had no reason to expect that he wouldn't, until the day a team of Scythes laid siege to his research facility. Rowan was awakened at dawn by a towel hurled at his face.
"Get up already, sleeping beauty," Scythe Volta said. "Shower and get dressed. Today's the day."
"Today's what day?" Rowan said, still too groggy to sit up.
"Gleaning day,"
said Volta. "You mean you guys actually glean? I thought you just partied and spent each other's money."
"Just get yourself ready, smartass."
While Rowan turned off his shower, he heard the chop of helicopter blades, and when he came out onto the lawn, it was waiting for them. It was no surprise to Rowan that it was painted royal blue and studded with glistening stars. Everything in Scythe Goddard's life was a testament to his ego. The other three Scythes were already out front, practicing their best kill moves. Their robes were bulky and clearly loaded down with all nature of weaponry sheathed within the folds. Chomsky torched a potted shrub with a flamethrower. "Really?" said Rowan. "A flamethrower?" Chomsky shrugged.
"No law against it. And anyway, what business is it of yours?"
Goddard strode out of the mansion.
"What are you waiting for? Let's go."
As if they hadn't all been waiting on him. The moment was charged with the adrenaline of anticipation, and as they strode toward the waiting helicopter, Rowan, for an instant, had an image of them as superheroes, until he remembered what their true purpose was, and the image shattered. "How many are we going to glean?" he asked Scythe Volta, but Volta just shook his head and pointed to his ear. Too loud to hear Rowan over the chopper blades, which made the Scythe's robes flail like flags in a storm as they crossed the lawn. Rowan did some calculations. Scythes were charged with 5 gleanings per week, and to the best of his knowledge, these 4 hadn't taken a life in the 3 months that Rowan had been there. That meant they could glean about 250 today, and still be within their quota. This wasn't going to be a gleaning. This was going to be a massacre. Rowan hesitated, falling back as the others got in. Volta noticed.
"Is there a problem?" Volta shouted over the deafening chop of the blades. But even if Rowan can make himself heard, he would never be understood. This is what Goddard and his disciples did. It was how they operated. This was business as usual. Could this ever be that way for him? He thought to his latest training sessions, the ones with living targets, the feeling he had when he had rendered all but one deadish, revulsion fighting a primal sense of victory. Kinda quiet? Turn that up a little bit. Is that sound better? Classy? He felt that now as he stood at the entrance to the helicopter. Little bit. I do have to be quiet though, since I'm in an apartment now with neighbors next to me. All four Scythes were looking at him now. They were ready to go on their mission. The only thing holding them back was Rowan.
It's time to drink water.
Gosh.
It's time to drink water.
Stand up and sit.
Thank you, guys. I am not one of them, he told himself. I will not be gleaning. I will only be there to observe. He willed himself to step up into the helicopter, pulled the door closed, and they rose skyward. Never been up in one of these, have you? Volta asked, misreading Rowan's apprehension. No, never.
What's up? It's me.
Are you done? May I continue? Okay.
What's up? It's me.
It's the only way to travel,
Scythe Rand said. We are the angels of death, said Scythe Goddard. It is only fitting that we swoop in from the heavens. They flew south, over Fulcrum City, to the suburbs beyond. All the way, Rowan silently hoped the helicopter would crash, but realized what a pointless exercise that would be, because even if it did, they'd all be revived by the weekend. A helicopter landed on the main building's rooftop heliport. It was unexpected, unannounced, which never happened. The Thunderhead piloted just about everything airborne, and even if it was an off-grid chopper, someone on board would always announce their approach and request clearance. This thing just dropped from the sky and onto the roof. The closest security guard bounded up the stairs from the 6th floor and onto the roof, in time to see the Scythes stepping out. 4 of them, blue, green, yellow, and orange, and a boy with an apprentice armband. The guard stood there slack-jawed, unsure of what to do. He thought to call this to the main office, but realized that doing so might get him gleaned. The female Scythe, in green with a witchy dark hair and a Pan-Asian leaning to her, approached him, grinning.
Knock knock,
She said. He was too stunned to respond.
I said knock knock.
Who's there? He finally responded. She reached into her robe, producing the most awful-looking knife the man had ever seen, but her arm was grabbed by the Scythe in blue before she could use it. Don't waste it on him, Anne, he said to her. The Scythe in green put the knife away and shrugged.
Guess you'll miss the punchline.
Then she stormed past him with the others, and down the stairs into the building. He caught the gaze of the apprentice, who lagged a few yards behind the others. What should I do? He asked the boy. Get out, the boy told him, and don't look back. So the guard did what he was told. He crossed to the far stairwell, bounded all the way down, burst out of the emergency exit, and didn't stop running until he was too far away to hear the screams. We'll start up here on the 6th floor and work our way down, Goddard told the others. They came out of the stairwell to see a woman waiting for the elevator. She gasped and froze. Boo, said Scythe Chomsky. The woman flinched, dropping the folder she carried. Rowan knew that any of the Scythes, on a whim, could have taken her out. She must have known that too, because she braced for it. How high is your security clearance? Goddard asked her. Level 1. she told him. Is that good? She nodded, and he took her security badge. Thank you, he said. You get to live. And he moved toward a locked door, swiping the card to gain entrance. Rowan found himself getting lightheaded and realized he was beginning to hyperventilate. I should wait here, he told them. I can't glean. I should wait here.
No way, said Chomsky. You'll come with us.
But what use will I be? I'll just be in the way. Then Scythe Rand kicked in the glass of an emergency case, pulled out a fire hatchet, and handed it to him.
Here,
She said.
break stuff.
Why? She winked at him.
Because you can.
The employees in suit 601, which took up the entire north half of the floor, had no warning. Scythe Goddard and his scythe strode to the center of activity. Attention! He announced in full theatrical voice. Attention all! You have been selected for gleaning today. You are commanded to step forward and meet your demise. Murmurs, gasps, and cries of shock. No one stepped forward. No one ever did. Goddard nodded to Chomsky, Volta, and Rand, and the four advanced through the maze of cubicles and offices, leaving nothing living in their wake. I am your completion, intoned Goddard. I am your deliverance. I am your portal to mysteries beyond this life. Blades and bullets and flames. The office was catching fire. Alarms began to blare. Sprinklers gushed forth icy water from the ceiling. The doomed were caught between fire and water, and the deadly sights of four master hunters. No one stood a chance. I am your final word, your Omega, your bringer of peace and rest. Embrace me. No one embraced him. Mostly people cowered and pleaded for mercy, but the only mercy shown was the speed at which they were dispatched. Yesterday you were gods. Today you are mortal. Your death is my gift to you. Accept it with grace and humility. So focused were the scythes that none of them noticed Rowan slipping out behind them and crossing to suite 602, where he pounded on the glass door until someone came and Rowan could warn him what was coming. Take the back stairs, he told the man. Get as many out as you can. Don't ask questions. Just go. If the man had any doubts, they were chased away by the sounds of desperation and despair coming from just across the hall. A few minutes later, when Goddard, Volta, and Chomsky were done with Suite 601, they crossed the hall to find Suite 602 empty, save for Rowan, swinging his fire hatchet at computers and desks and everything in his path, doing exactly as he was told to do. The sides moved faster than the flames, faster than the flow of workers trying to escape. Volta and Chomsky blocked 2 of the 3 stairwells. Rand made her way to the main entrance and stood like a goalie, taking out anyone trying to escape through the front door. Goddard spouted his ritualistic litany as he moved through the panicked mob, switching his weapons as it suited him, and Rowan swung his hatchet at anything that would shatter, then secretly directed whoever he could toward the one unguarded stairwell. It was over in less than 15 minutes. The building was in flames, the helicopter was now hovering above, and the scythes strode out the front entrance like the 4 horsemen of the post-mortal apocalypse. Rowan brought up the rear, dragging his hatchet on the marble, until he dropped it with a clatter. Before them were half a dozen fire trucks and ambudrones, and behind that hordes of survivors. Some ran when they saw the scythes come out, but just as many stayed, their fascination overcoming their terror. You see, Goddard told Rowan, the firefighters can't interfere with scythe action. They'll let the whole thing burn down. And as for the survivors, we have a wonderful public relations opportunity. Then he stepped forward and spoke loudly to those who hadn't fled. Our gleaning is complete, he announced. To those who survive, we grant immunity. Come forward to claim it. He held out his hand, the one that bore his ring. The other scythes followed his lead and did the same. No one moved at first, probably thinking it was a trick, but in a few moments, one ash-stained employee stumbled forward, followed by another and another, and then the entire mob was apprehensively coming toward them. The first few knelt and kissed the scythes' rings, and once the others saw that this was for real, they surged forward, mobbing the scythes. Easy, shouted Volta, one at a time. But the same mob mentality that propelled their escape now pushed them toward those life-saving rings. all of a sudden, no one seemed to remember their dead co-workers. Then, as the crowd around them got denser and more agitated, Goddard pulled back his hand, removed his ring, and handed it to Rowan. "I tire of this," Goddard said. "Take it. Share in the adoration." "But I can't. I'm not ordained." "You can use it if I give you permission as a proxy," Goddard told him. "And right now, you have my permission." Rowan put it on, but it wouldn't stay, so he switched it to his index finger, where it was a bit more snug. Then he held out his hand as the other Scythes did. The crush of people didn't care which finger the ring was on, or even whose hand it was on. They practically climbed over one another to kiss it, and to thank him for his justice, his love, and his mercy, calling him Your Honor, not even noticing he wasn't a Scythe. "Welcome to life as a god," Scythe Volta told him, while behind them the building burned to the ground. "We are wise, but not perfect, insightful, but not all-seeing. We know that by establishing the Scythedom, we will be doing something very necessary. But we, the Firth Scythes, still have our misgivings. Human nature is both predictable and mysterious, prone to great and sudden advances, yet still mired in despicable self-interest. Our hope is that by a set of 10 simple, straightforward laws, we can avoid the pitfalls of human fallibility. My greatest hope is that, in time, our wisdom will become as perfect as our knowledge, and if this experiment of ours fails, we have also embedded a way to escape it. May the Thunderhead help us all, if we ever need that escape." From the Gleaning Journal of Honorable Scythe Prometheus, the world-first Supreme Blade. Chapter 26. Not Like the Others. That night they feasted, although Rowan could not dig up an appetite, no matter how deep he mined. Goddard ate enough for everyone. He was invigorated by the day's hunt, like a vampire sucking in the life force of its victims. He was more charming, more suave than ever, saying things to make everyone laugh. How easy, thought Rowan, to fall in love with him, to be stoked into his elite club, just as the others had been. Clearly, Chomsky and Rand were cut from a similar cloth as Goddard. They held not the slightest illusion of consciousness. But unlike Goddard, they held no delusions of grandeur. They gleaned for sport, for the joy of it, and as Scythe Rand so accurately put it, because they can. They were more than happy to wield their weapons, while Goddard inhabited his role as the Angel of Death. Rowan couldn't be sure if the man believed it, or if it was all artifice, theatrically to add flair to the show. Scythe Volta, though, was different. Yes, he stormed the office building and gleaned his share, just as the others had, but he said little as their god machine carried them home across the sky. And now at dinner, he barely touched the food on his plate. He kept getting up to wash his hands. He probably thought nobody noticed, but Rowan did, and so did Esme.
Scythe Volta is always cranky after a gleaning.
Esme leaned over to tell Rowan.
Don't stare at him or he'll throw something at you.
Halfway through dinner, Goddard asked for a final count.
We gleaned 263, Rand told him. We're ahead of our quota now. We have to glean fewer next time.
Goddard slammed his fist down on the table in disgust. "That damn quota hobbles us all. If it weren't for the quota, every day could be like today." Then Goddard turned to Scythe Volta and asked how his task was coming. It was Volta's job to set appointments with the families of the deceased, so that they could be granted the obligatory immunity. "I've spent the whole day reaching out to each family," Volta said. "They'll be lining up at the outer gate first thing tomorrow morning." "We should let them onto the grounds," Goddard said with a smirk. "Then they can watch Rowan train on the lawn."
I hate the bereaved,
Rand said as she stabbed a fresh piece of meat with her fork and dragged it to her plate.
They always have such awful oral hygiene. My ring always reeks after an hour of granting bereavement immunity.
Unable to stomach any more, Rowan excused himself. "I promised Esme I'd play cards with her after dinner, and it's getting late." There was no truth in that, but he threw a glance to Esme and she nodded, pleased to be part of an impromptu conspiracy.
But you'll miss the creme brulee, said Goddard.
More for us, said Chomsky, shoving a forkful of prime rib into his maw. Rowan and Esme went to the game room and played Jim Rummy, mercifully undisturbed by talk of gleaning and quotas and the kissing of rings. Rowan was thankful that the Suicide King held the monopoly on misery in this room.
We should get the others to join us,
Esme suggested.
Then we can play hearts or spades. You can't play those games with just two.
I have no interest in playing cards with the Scythes, Rowan told her flatly.
Not them, silly. I mean the servants.
She picked up his discarded 9, the second one he fed to her, as if he didn't know she was collecting them. Letting her win today was payment for helping him escape the dining room.
I play cards with the poolman's son sometimes, she told him, but they don't like me very much on account of this used to be their house. Now they all share a room in the servants' quarters.
Then she added,
You're sleeping in one of their rooms, you know, so I bet they don't like you very much either.
I'm sure they don't like any of us.
Probably not.
Maybe it was because Esme was young, but she seemed entirely oblivious to the things that weighed so heavily on Rowan. Perhaps she knew better than to question things, or pass judgment on what she saw. She accepted her situation at face value, and never spoke ill of her benefactor, or more accurately, her captor, for she was clearly Goddard's prisoner, even though she might not see it that way. Hers was a gilded cage, but it was a cage nonetheless. Still, her ignorance was her bliss, and Rowan decided not to shatter her illusion that she was free. Rowan picked up an ace, which he needed for his hand, but discarded it anyway. Does Goddard ever talk to you? He asked Esme.
Of course he talks to me, she said. He's always asking me how I am, if there's anything I need, and if there is, he always makes sure that I get it. Just last week, I asked for a...
No, not that kind of talking, said Rowan, cutting her off. I mean, real talking. Has he ever hinted as to why you matter to him so much? Esme didn't answer. Instead, she laid down her cards. 9s over 3s.
Rummy, she said. Loser shuffles.
Rowan gathered the cards. Scythe Goddard must have had a good reason to let you live, and to grant you immunity. Aren't you at all curious? Esme shrugged, but stayed tight-lipped. It was only after Rowan dealt the next hand that she said,
Actually, Scythe Goddard didn't grant me immunity. He can glean me at any time he wants, but he doesn't.
Then she smiled.
That makes me even more special, don't you think?
They played 4 games. 1 Esme won fair and square. 2 Rowan let her win, and 1 Rowan won, so it wouldn't be as obvious that he had thrown the others. By the time they were done, dinner had broken up, and the others were going about their particular evening routines. Rowan avoided everyone and tried to go straight to his room, but on his way he heard something that gave him pause. There was a faint sobbing coming from Scythe Volta's room. He listened at the door to make sure it wasn't his imagination, then turned the knob. The door wasn't locked. He pushed it open slightly and peered inside. Scythe Volta was there, sitting on his bed, head in hands. His body heaved with sobs that he tried to stifle, but could not. It was a few moments before he looked up and saw Rowan. Volta's sorrow instantly turned to fury.
Who the hell said you could come in here? Get out!
He grabbed the nearest object, a glass paperweight, and hurled it at Rowan, just as Esme had suggested he might. It would have left a pretty nasty gash on Rowan's head if it connected, but Rowan ducked and the thing hit the door, leaving a substantial dent in the wood instead of Rowan's skull. Rowan could have retreated. That probably would have been the most judicious course of action, but leaving well enough alone was not Rowan's strong point. He was notoriously skilled at sticking his nose where it didn't belong. He stepped into the room and closed the door behind him, preparing to dodge the next blunt object hurled his way. You have to be quieter if you don't want anyone to hear you, he told Vota.
If you tell anyone, I will make your life a living hell.
Rowan laughed at that, because it implied his life wasn't already that.
You think that's funny? I'll show you funny.
Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. I wasn't laughing at you, if that's what you think. Since Volta was no longer throwing things and wasn't chasing him around, Rowan grabbed a chair and sat down, far enough away to give Volta some space. Today was hard, Rowan said. I don't blame you. What do you know about it? Snapped Volta. I know you're not like the others, said Rowan. Not really. Volta looked up at him, then his eyes red from tears that he didn't try to hide anymore. There's something wrong with me, you mean? Volta looked down again, clenching his fists. But Rowan didn't move, because he didn't expect to get a beating. He suspected that Volta would use his own fist against himself if he could. Scythe Goddard is the future, Volta said. I don't want to be part of the past, don't you understand? But you hated today, didn't you? Even more than me, because you weren't just watching, you were part of it too. And you'll be part of it soon too. Maybe not, said Rowan. Oh, you will be. The moment you get your ring and kill that pretty little girlfriend of yours, you'll know there's no turning back for either. Rowan swallowed, trying to fight down what little bit of dinner he had eaten. Citra's face bloomed in his mind, but he pushed the image away. He couldn't let himself think about her now. Rowan knew he was out on a limb with Volta. The only thing to do was shimmy to its precarious end. You only pretend to like gleaning, he said to Volta, but you hate it more than you've ever hated anything. Your mentor was Scythe Nehru, right? He's very old school, which means he chose you for your conscience. You don't want to take life, and you definitely don't want to take dozens upon dozens at a time. Volta leaped up, moving faster than seemed possible. He lifted Rowan up and pushed him against the wall with a bruising slam that made Rowan sorely miss his pain-killing nanites. You will never repeat that to anyone, do you hear me? I've come too far to have my position jeopardized. I won't be blackmailed by a snot-nosed apprentice. Is that what you think I'm doing? Blackmailing you? Don't toy with me, growled Volta. I know why you're here. Rowan was genuinely disappointed. I thought you knew me. A moment more and Volta loosened his grip. Nobody knows anyone, do they? He said. I promise I won't tell anyone, and I don't want anything from you. Volta finally backed off. I'm sorry. After you've been surrounded by so much scheming, you start to think that's how everyone plays. He sat back down on the bed. I believe you, because I know you're better than that. In fact, I knew that from the moment Goddard brought you in. He sees you as a challenge, because if he can turn one of Faraday's apprentices to his way of thinking, it proves he can turn anyone. Then it occurred to Rowan that Volta wasn't all that much older than him. He had always feigned a confidence that made him seem older, but now his vulnerability revealed the truth. He was 20 at most, which meant he'd only been a scythe for a couple of years. Rowan didn't know the path that led him from an old guard scythe to Goddard, but he could imagine. He could see how a junior scythe might gravitate towards Goddard's flash and charisma. After all, Goddard promised his disciples anything a human heart could desire, in exchange for the complete abdication of one's conscience. In a profession where a conscience was a liability, who would want one? Rowan sat down again and pulled his chair close enough to Volta to whisper. I'll tell you what I think, Rowan said. Goddard isn't a scythe, he's a killer. It was the first time Rowan dared to say it out loud. There's a lot written about killers from the mortal age. Monsters like Jack the Ripper, or Charlie Manson, or Cyber Sally. And the only difference between them and Goddard is that people let Goddard get away with it. The mortals knew how wrong it was, but somehow we've forgotten. Yeah, but even if that's true, what can anyone do about it? Asked Volta. The future comes whether we want it to or not. Rand and Chomsky and the dozens of other sick, twisted bastards longing to be in Goddard's inner circle are going to dominate that future. I'm sure the founding scythes must be rolling in their graves. But the point is, they are in their graves, and they're not coming back any time soon. Volta took a deep breath and wiped the last of his tears. For your sake, Rowan, I hope that you come to love killing as much as Goddard does. It would make your life so much easier, so much more rewarding. The suggestion weighed heavily on him. A month ago, Rowan would have denied that he could ever become such a monster, but now he wasn't so sure. The pressure to surrender was greater every day. He had to hope that if Volta had never truly surrendered to the darkness, then maybe he might stand a chance as well.
There was no official media coverage of gleanings, much to the chagrin of the more publicity-minded sides. Not even large-scale gleanings get on the news. Even so, plenty of personal pictures and videos of gleanings are uploaded to the Thunderhead, providing a guerrilla record, which is so much more enticing and exciting than anything official. Notoriety and infamy quickly evolve into celebrity and fame for Scythes, and the most brazen acts harden further into legend. Some Scythes find the fame addictive and seek greater and greater celebrity. Others would rather remain anonymous. I cannot deny that I am legend, not for the simple gleanings I do now, but for the audacious ones I did more than 150 years ago. As if I weren't already immortal enough, I am further immortalized on collectible cards. The newer ones are prized by schoolchildren. The older ones are worth a fortune to hardcore collectors, regardless of the condition. I am legend, and yet every day I wish that I was not.
From the Gleaning Journal of Honorable Scythe Curie. Chapter 27. Harvest Conclave. Citra's secret investigation led to some surprises she couldn't wait to share with Rowan when she finally saw him at Harvest Conclave. She certainly couldn't share them with the Scythe Curie. The two had come to trust each other, and the Scythe would have seen Citra using her online credentials as a flagrant violation of that trust. Citra's life had been taken a very different turn from Rowan's. She did not attend loud, lavish parties, nor did she train against live subjects. She helped cook quiet meals for heartbroken families, and sparred with the Black Belt Bokator bot. She created tinctures and studied with practical use of deadly poisons in Scythe Curie's personal apothecary and toxic herb garden. She learned about all the infamous acts of both the best and the worst Scythes in history. In the past, it was usually laziness, prejudice, or lack of foresight that made a bad Scythe, Citra had discovered. There were those who seemed to glean too many neighbors because they couldn't be bothered to look farther. There were those who, in spite of repeated disciplinary action, would glean people with specific ethnic traits. As for poor judgment, there were plenty of examples there as well, such as Scythe Satre, who thought it would be a good idea to do all his gleanings at rodeos, thereby destroying the sport entirely, since no one would attend a rodeo for fear of being gleaned. Of course, the bad sides weren't all in the past, but instead of bad, they were now called innovative and forward-thinking. Like the innovative bloodbaths of Scythe Goddard and his killer cronies. The mass gleaning at Magnetic Propulsion Laboratory, although never reported officially, was big news, and there were plenty of private videos uploaded to the Thunderhead, showing Goddard and his disciples doling out immunity like bread to the poor. Rowan was right there in the middle of it. Citra didn't know what to think about that.
The world has a talent for rewarding bad behavior with stardom,
Scythe Curie said, as she viewed some of the videos that had been uploaded. Then she got a bit pensive.
I know the pitfalls of being a celebrity Scythe,
she confessed, although Citra already knew.
I was headstrong and stupid in my early days. I thought that by gleaning just the right people at just the right time, I could change the world for the better. I believed, in my arrogance, that I had a keen grasp of the big picture that others lacked. But, of course, I was just as limited as anyone else. When I gleaned the president and his cabinet, it shook the world. But the world was already shaking just fine without me. They called me Miss Massacre, and as time went on, that changed to the Grand Dame of Death. I spent more than 100 years trying to fade into anonymity, but even the youngest of children know me. I am the boogeyman parents use to get their children to behave. Be good or the Grand Dame will get you.
Scythe Curie shook her head sadly.
Most celebrity is fleeting, but when you're a Scythe, your defining deeds stand forever. Take my advice, Citra, and remain undefined.
You might be a celebrity Scythe, Citra pointed out, but even at your worst, you were nothing like Goddard.
No, I wasn't, thank goodness, Scythe Curie said. I never took life for sport. You see, there are some who seek celebrity to change the world, and others who seek it to ensnare the world. Goddard is the second kind.
And then she said something that guaranteed Citra many a sleepless night.
I wouldn't trust your friend Rowan anymore. Goddard is as corrosive as acid hurled in the eye. The kindest thing you can do is win that ring when Winter Conclave comes, and glean the boy quickly, before that acid burns any deeper than it already has.
Citra was glad that Winter Conclave was still months away. It was Harvest Conclave she had to worry about. At first, Citra had looked forward to September and the Harvest Conclave, but as it approached, she began to dread it. It wasn't the upcoming test that troubled her. She felt she was prepared for whatever trials would be thrown at the apprentices. What she dreaded was seeing Rowan, because she had no idea what all these months with Goddard had done to him.
Win that ring and glean him quickly,
Scythe Curie had said. Well, Citra didn't have to worry about that now. She had 4 months until that decision would be made. But the clock never stopped ticking. It moved inexorably toward one of their deaths. Harvest Conclave took place on a clear but blustery September day. While a storm had kept many spectators away from the last conclave, they gathered in force today on the street before the Fulcrum City Capitol building. Even more peace officers than before were posted to keep the gawking crowds back. Some Scythes, mostly the old guard ones, arrived on foot, choosing a humble walk from their hotels over a more flashy arrival. Others pulled up in high-end cars, choosing to make the most of their celebrity status. News crews aimed their cameras, but mostly kept their distance. This was, after all, not a red carpet. No questions, no interviews, but there was certainly a lot of preening. Scythes waved to the cameras and squared their shoulders, standing tall so they'd look their best on screen. Scythe Goddard and his crew showed up in a limousine, royal blue studded with mock diamonds, just in case there was any question as to who was inside. As Goddard and his entourage emerged, the crowd oohed and ahed, as if their dazzling appearance rivaled a display of fireworks. There he is! It's him! He's so handsome! He's so scary! He's so well-groomed! Goddard took a moment to turn to the crowd and sweep his hand in a royal wave. Then he focused on one girl from the audience, held her gaze, pointed at her, then continued on up the stairs, saying nothing. He's so strange, he's so mysterious, he's so charming. As for the girl he singled out, she was left impressed and terrified and confused by his momentary attention, which was precisely the intent. So focused was the crowd on Goddard and his colorful entourage, no one much noticed Rowan bringing up the rear as they climbed the steps to the entrance. Goddard's crew weren't the only Scythes up for the show. Scythe Kierkegaard had a crossbow slung over his shoulder. Not that he had any intention of using it today. It was just merely a part of the spectacle. Still, he could have aimed it at just about anyone in the audience and taken them out. The knowledge of that made the crowd all the more excited. No one had ever been gleaned on the Capitol steps before a conclave, but that didn't mean it couldn't happen. While most sides approached from down the main avenue, Scythe Curie and Citra made their entrance from a side street, to avoid being the focus of the crowd's attention for as long as possible. As the stately Scythe pushed through the crowd of onlookers, a rumble erupted from the people closest to her, as they realized who was moving among them. People reached out to touch her silky lavender robe. She endured this as a matter of course, but one man actually grabbed the fabric and she had to slap his hand away. "Careful," she said, meeting his eye. "I don't take kindly to the violation of my person." "I apologize, Your Honor," said the man. Then he reached for her hand, intent on touching her ring, but she pulled her hand away from him. "Don't even think about it." Citra pushed her way in front of Scythe Curie to help clear a path for her. "Maybe we should have taken a limo," Citra said. "At least that way we wouldn't have to fight our way through." "That's always been a little too elitist for me," Curie said. As they cleared the crowd, a sudden gust came down the wide Capitol steps, catching Scythe Curie's long silver hair and blowing it back like a bridal train, making her look almost mystical. "I knew I should have braided it today," she said. As she and Citra climbed the white marble steps, someone to their left shouted, "We love you!" Scythe Curie stopped and turned, unable to find the speaker, so she addressed them all. "Why?" she demanded, but now, under her cruel scrutiny, no one responded. "I could end your existence at any moment. Why love me?" Still no one answered, but the exchange attracted a cameraman who moved forward, getting a little too close. Scythe Curie smacked the camera so hard it wrenched the man's whole body around, and he nearly dropped it. "Mind your manners," said the Scythe. "Yes, Your Honor. Sorry, Your Honor." She continued up the steps with Citra behind her. Hard to imagine that I used to love this attention. Now I'd avoid it entirely if I could. You didn't seem this tense at the last conclave, Citra noted. That's because I didn't have an apprentice being tested. Instead, I was the one testing other Scythe's apprentices. A test that Citra had failed spectacularly, but she didn't feel like bringing that up. Do you know what today's test will be? Citra asked as they reached the top of the stairs and stepped into the entry vestibule. No, but I do know it's being administered by Scythe Cervantes. He intends to be very physically minded. For all I know, he'll have you tilting at windmills. As before, the Scythes greeted one another in the grand rotunda, waiting for the assembly room doors to open. Breakfast was set out on tables in the center of the rotunda, featuring a pyramid of Danish that must have taken hours to assemble, but seconds to fall as the Scythes carelessly took the lower Danish without regard to the ones above. The waitstaff scrambled to gather the fallen pastries before they could be ground underfoot. Scythe Curie found it all very amusing. It was foolhardy of the caterer to think that Scythes would leave anything in a state of order. Citra spotted Junior Scythe Goodall, the girl who had been ordained at last conclave. She had her robes made by Claire de Glace, one of the world's preeminent fashion designers. It had been a monumental mistake, because today's designers were all about shocking people out of their happy place. Scythe Goodall's orange and blue striped robe made her look more like a circus clown than a scythe. Citra couldn't help but notice how Goddard and his junior Scythes were at the center of even more attention than at the vernal conclave, although there were a number of Scythes who turned a cold shoulder, even more crowded them, seeking to integrate themselves. There are more and more Scythes who think like Goddard, Scythe Curie said quietly to Citra. They've slipped between the cracks like snakes, infiltrating our ranks, supplanting the best of us like weeds. Citra thought about Faraday, a decent Scythe most certainly choked out by the weeds. The killers are rising to power, Scythe Curie said, and if they do, the days of this world will be very dark indeed. It is left to the truly honorable Scythes to stand firm against it. I look forward to the day you join in that fight. Thank you, Your Honor. Citra had no problem fighting the good fight if she became a Scythe. It was the events that would lead up to it that she couldn't bear to consider. Scythe Curie went off to greet several of the old guard Scythes, who held true to the founder's ideals. That's when Citra finally spotted Rowan. He didn't bask in the false glow of Goddard. Instead, he was his own little center of attention. He was surrounded by the other apprentices, and even a few junior Scythes. They chatted, they laughed, and Citra found herself feeling slighted that Rowan hadn't even sought her out. Rowan had, in fact, tried to find her, but by the time Citra entered the rotunda, Rowan had already been set upon by unexpected admirers. Some were envious of his position with Goddard's, others were just curious, and others were clearly hoping to attach themselves to his rising star. Political positioning started young in the Scythedom. You were there at the office building, weren't you? One of the apprentices said. A spat! One of the new videos at Conclave for the first time. I saw you in the videos. He wasn't just there, said another spat. He had Goddard's freaking ring handing out immunity. Wow, is that even allowed? Rowan shrugged. Goddard said it was, and anyway, it wasn't like I asked him to give me his ring. He just did it. One of the junior Scythes sighed wistfully. Man, he must really like you if he let you do that. The thought that Goddard might actually like him made Rowan uncomfortable, because the things that Goddard liked, Rowan categorically despised. So, what's he like? One girl asked. Like no one I've ever met, Rowan told her. I wish I was his apprentice, said one of the spats. then grimaced like he'd just bitten into rancid cheese Danish. I was taken on by Scythe Mao. Scythe Mao, Rowan knew, was another showboater, enjoying the celebrity of his public image. He was notoriously independent and didn't align himself with the old guard or the new. Rowan didn't know if he was a man who voted his own conscience or sold his vote to the highest bidder. Faraday would have known. There were so many things Rowan missed about being Faraday's apprentice. The inside scoop was one of them.
Goddard and his junior Scythe totally owned the Capitol steps when they came up,
said an apprentice Rowan remembered from the last conclave, the one who knew his poisons.
They looked so good. Have you decided what color you'll be? And what jewels you'll have on your robe?
A girl asked, suddenly hanging on his arm like a fast-growing vine. He didn't know which would be more awkward, pulling out of her grip or not.
Invisible, Rowan said. I'll come up the State House steps naked.
Those'll be some jewels, quipped one of the junior Scythes, and everyone laughed. Then Citra pushed her way through, and Rowan felt as if he was caught doing something he shouldn't.
Citra, hi,
he said. It felt so forced. He just wanted to take it back and find another way to say it. He shrugged out of the vine girl's grip, but it was too late, because Citra had seen it.
Looks like you've made a lot of friends,
Citra said. No, not really, he said. Then he realized he just insulted them all. I mean, we're all friends, right? We're in the same boat.
Same boat,
repeated Citra with deadpan dullness, but daggers in her eyes as sharp as the ones that used to hang in Faraday's weapons den.
Good to see you too, Rowan.
Then she strode away.
Let her go, said the vine girl. She'll be history at the next conclave anyway.
Rowan didn't even excuse himself as he left them. He caught up with Citra quickly, which told him she really wasn't trying that hard to get away. This was a good sign. He gently grabbed her arm and she turned to him. Hey, he said, I'm sorry about back there.
No, I get it, she said. You're a big deal now. You have to flaunt it.
It's not like that. Do you think I want them fawning all over me? Come on, you know me better. Citra hesitated. It's been 4 months, she said. 4 months can change a person. That much was true, but some things hadn't changed. Rowan knew what she wanted to hear, but that would just be another dance, another bit of posturing, so he told her the truth. It's good to see you, Citra, he said, but it hurts to see you. It hurts a lot, and I don't know what to do about it. He could tell that reached her, because her eyes began to glisten with tears that she blinked away before they could spill.
I know. I hate that it has to be this way.
I'll tell you what, said Rowan. Let's not even think about Winter Conclave right now. Let's be in the here and now and let Winter Conclave take care of itself. Citra nodded.
Agreed.
Then she took a deep breath.
Let's take a walk. There's something I have to show you.
They walked along the outer edge of the rotunda, passing the archways where Scythes wheeled and dealed. Citra pulled out her phone and projected a series of holograms onto her palm, cupping it so no one but Rowan could see.
I dug these out of the Thunderhead's backbrain.
How did you do that?
Never mind how. What's important is that I did, and what I found.
The holograms were of Scythe Faraday on the streets near his home.
These are from his last day, Citra said. I was able to retrace at least some of his steps that day.
But why?
Just watch.
The hologram showed him being let into someone's home.
That's the house of the woman he introduced us to at the market. He spent a few hours there. Then he went to this cafe.
Citra swiped to another video showing him going into the restaurant.
I think he may have met someone there, but I don't know who.
Okay, said Rowan. So he was saying goodbye to people. So far it seems consistent with the things someone would do if it was their last day on Earth. Citra swiped again. The next video showed him going up to the stairs to the train station.
This was 5 minutes before he died, Citra said. We know that it happened at the train station, but guess what? The camera on that train platform had been vandalized, supposedly by unsavories. It was down for the entire day, so there's no visual record of what actually happened on that platform.
A train pulled out of the station, and a moment later, a train pulled in, heading in the other direction. That was the one that killed Faraday. Although Rowan couldn't see it, he grimaced as if he had. You think someone killed him and made it look like he did it himself? Rowan looked around to make sure they weren't being observed, and spoke quietly.
If that's your only evidence, it's pretty weak. I know, so I kept digging. She swiped back and replayed the scene of Faraday walking toward the station. There were 5 witnesses. I couldn't track them down without digging into the Scythe records, and if I did that, they know I was looking. But it only makes sense that those witnesses would have gone up those stairs too, right? There were 18 people who went up the stairs around the time that Faraday died. Some of them probably got on the first train. She pointed to the train leaving the station. But not all of them. Of those 18 people, I was able to identify about half of them, and 3 of them were granted immunity that very day.
It was enough to take the wind out of Rowan and made him feel lightheaded. They were bribed to say it was a self-gleaning.
If you were just an ordinary citizen and witnessed one Scythe killing another, and then were offered immunity to keep your mouth shut, what would you do?
Rowan wanted to believe he'd seek justice, but he thought back to the days before he became an apprentice, when the appearance of a Scythe was the most frightening thing he could imagine. I'd kiss the ring and keep my mouth shut. Across the rotunda, the doors of the conclave chamber opened, and the Scythes began to file in.
Who do you think did it? Rowan asked. Who had the most to gain by getting Faraday out of the picture?
Neither of them needed to say it out loud. They both knew the answer. Rowan knew that Goddard was capable of unthinkable things, but would he kill another Scythe? Rowan shook his head, not wanting to believe it. That's not the only explanation, he told her. It might not have even been a Scythe at all. Maybe it was the family member of someone he gleaned, someone who wanted revenge. Anyone could have taken the ring, pushed him to the path of the train, and used the ring to give immunity to the witnesses. They'd have to stay quiet then, or they'd be considered accomplices. Citra opened her mouth to refute it, but closed it again. It was possible. Even though using Faraday's ring would have been frozen the killer's finger, it was possible.
I didn't think of that, she said.
Or what about the Tonist? The Tone cults hate Scythes. The rotunda was quickly emptying. They left the alcove and moved toward the chamber doors. You don't have enough facts to accuse anyone of anything, Rowan said. You should let it sit for now.
Let it sit? You can't be serious! I said for now.
You'll have full access to the Scythedom's records once you're ordained, and you'll be able to prove exactly what happened. Citra stopped in her tracks.
What do you mean, once I'm ordained? It could just as easily be you. Or is there something I'm missing?
Rowan pursed his lips, furious at himself for letting it slip. Let's just get inside before they close the doors. The rituals of conclave were just as they had been before. The tolling of the dead, the washing of hands, grievances, and discipline. Once again, an anonymous accusation was leveled against Scythe Goddard, this time accusing him of handing out immunity too freely. Who brings this accusation? Goddard demanded. Let the accuser stand and identify his or herself. Of course, no one took credit, which allowed Goddard to retain the floor. I will admit this accusation has merit, Goddard said. I am a generous man, and perhaps have been too liberal in my dulling of immunity. I make no excuses and am unrepentant. I throw myself under the mercy of the Highblade to levy my punishment. Highblade Xenocrates waved his hand dismissively. Yes, just sit down, Goddard. Your penance will be to shut up for a whole 5 minutes. That brought a round of laughter. Goddard bowed to the Highblade and took his seat. And although a few Scythes, including Scythe Curie, tried to object, pointing out that historically, Scythes who overused the ring had their power to grant immunity limited to the families of the gleaned, their complaints fell on deaf ears. Xenocrates overruled all objections in the interest of speeding up the day's proceedings.
Amazing, said Scythe Curie quietly to Citra. Goddard's becoming untouchable. He can get away with anything. I wish someone would have had the foresight to glean him as a child. The world would have been better off.
Citra avoided Rowan at lunch, afraid that being seen together more than they already had might raise suspicion. She stood by Scythe Curie for lunch, and the Scythe introduced Citra to several of the greatest living Scythes. Scythe Mare, who had once been a delegate of the Global Conclave in Geneva, Scythe Mandela, who was in charge of the Bejeweling Committee, and Scythe Hideyoshi, the only known Scythe to have mastered the skill of gleaning through hypnosis. Citra tried not to be too starstruck. Meeting them almost gave her hope that the old guard could triumph against the likes of Goddard. She kept glancing over at Rowan, who, once more, couldn't seem to get away from the other apprentices, although she didn't know how hard he tried.
It's a bad sign, said Scythe Hideyoshi, when our young hopefuls gravitate so openly to the enemy. Rowan's not the enemy, Scythe Curie said. At least he does to those... Citra blurted, but Scythe Curie put a hand over her shoulder to quiet her. He represents the enemy, Scythe Curie said. At least he does to those other apprentices. Scythe Mandela sighed. There shouldn't be enemies in the Scythedom. We should all be on the same side, the side of humanity. It was generally agreed among the old guard that these were troubling times, but aside from raising objections that were repeatedly dismissed, no one took action. Citra found herself getting increasingly anxious after lunch, as the weapon manufacturers toted their wares and various motions were hotly debated. Things like whether a scythe's ring should be worn on the left or right hand, and whether or not a scythe should be allowed to endorse a commercial product, like running shoes or breakfast cereal. It all seemed insignificant to Citra. Why should any of that matter when the hollowed act of cleaning was slowly devolving into mortal age murder? Then, at last, it came for the apprentice trials. As before, the candidates for Scythedom went first, having been tested the night before. Of the 4 candidates who made it through their final test, only 2 were ordained. The other 2 had to suffer the walk of shame as they exited the chamber and went back to their old lives. Citra took guilty pleasure at the fact that the girl who had been sucking up to Rowan was one of those ejected. Once the new scythes were given their rings and took their new names, the remaining apprentices were called down front. Today's test, announced Scythe Cervantes, will be a competition in the martial art of Bokatar. The candidates will be paired and judged on their performance. A mat was brought in and rolled into the semicircle space in front of the rostrum. Citra took a deep breath. She had this. Bokatar was balance among strength, agility, and focus, and she had found her perfect balance. And then they struck a blade, right in the heart of her confidence. Citra Terranova will spar against Rowan Damage. A murmur from the crowd. Citra realized this was no random draw. They were paired intentionally, doomed to be adversaries. How could it be any other way? Her eyes met Rowan's, but his expression gave away nothing. The other matches went first. Each apprentice gave their best, but Bokatar was a bruising discipline, and not everyone strength. Some victories were close, others were routs, and then it came time for Citra and Rowan's match. Still, Rowan's expression gave her neither camaraderie nor sympathy, nor misery at having to be set against each other. Okay, let's do this, was all he said, and they began to circle each other. Rowan knew that today was his first true test, but not the one they had devised for him. Rowan's test was to look convincing, but still throw the match. Goddard, Xenocrates, Cervantes, and, for that matter, all the sides assembled, needed to believe he was doing his best, but that his best just wasn't good enough. He began with the ritualistic rhythmic circling, then posturing and physical taunting. Rowan launched himself at Citra, threw a kick that he telegraphed with his body language, and missed her by a fraction of an inch. Then he lost his footing and fell down on one knee. A very good start. He turned quickly, rising, remained off balance, and she lunged toward him. He thought that she would take him down with an elbow strike, but instead she grabbed him, pulling him forward even as she appeared to push him back. It brought him to balance and made it appear as if her move had failed, that she didn't have the leverage to do the job. Rowan backed away and caught her gaze. She was grinning at him, her eyes intensely on his. It was part of the taunting that Bokatar was known for, but this was so much more. He could read her just as clearly as if she were speaking aloud. You're not going to throw this match, her eyes said. Fight badly, I dare you, because no matter how poorly you try to fight, I will find a way to make you look good. Frustrated, Rowan launched himself at her again, an open palm strike at her shoulder, intentionally 2 inches off from the perfect leverage point, but she actually moved into it. His palm connected, she spun back with the force of his strike, and went down. Damn you, Citra, damn you! She could beat him at everything, even at losing. Shh. PJ. No. Shush. Shush. Shush.
Citra knew from the moment Rowan made his first kick what he was up to, and it infuriated her. How dare he think he had to fight badly for her to win this match? He had grown so arrogant under Scythe Goddard that he actually thought this wouldn't be a fair fight. Sure, he'd been training, but so had she. So what if he had grown stronger? That also meant he was bulkier and moved slower. A fair fight was the only way to keep their consciences clean. Didn't Rowan realize that by sacrificing himself, he'd be dooming her as well? She would rather soon glean herself as her first act as a Scythe than accept his sacrifice. Rowan glared at her now, furious, and it only made her laugh. "Is that the best you can do?" she asked. He threw out a low kick, just slow enough for her to anticipate, and without any force behind it. All she needed to do was lower her stance and the kick would have no effect. Instead, she responded by raising her center of gravity just enough for the kick to knock her feet out from under her. She fell to the mat, but righted herself quickly, so it wouldn't like she had done it on purpose. Then she threw her shoulder against him and hooked his right leg around his, applying force, but not enough to make his knee buckle. He grabbed her, twisted, and flipped them both down on the mat, landing with her in the dominant position over him. She countered by forcing him to roll over and pin her. He tried to release her, but when she held his arms in place, he couldn't. "What's the matter, Rowan?" she whispered. "Don't know what to do when you're on top of a girl." He finally pulled away and she got up. They faced each other one more time, circling in the familiar battle dance, while Cervantes circled them in the other direction, like a satellite, completely missing what was really going on between them. Rowan knew the match was almost over. He was about to win, and by winning he would lose. He must have been crazy thinking Citra would allow him to willingly throw the match. They both cared too much about each other. That was the problem. Citra would never willingly accept the Scythe's ring as long as her feelings for him got in the way. And all at once, Rowan knew exactly what he had to do. With only 10 seconds left to the match, all Citra had to do was keep up the dance. Rowan was clearly the victor. 10 more seconds of guarded circling, and Cervantes would blow the whistle. But then, Rowan did something Citra hadn't anticipated at all. He threw himself forward with lightning speed. Not clumsy, not feigning false incompetence, but with perfect practiced skill. In an instant he had put her into a headlock, squeezing her neck tight enough for her pan-niness to kick in, and then he leaned in close and snarled into her ear. "You fell right into my trap," he said. "Now you get what you deserve." Then he flung her body into the air, twisting her head the other way. Her neck broke with a loud and horrible snap, and darkness came over Citra like a landslide. Rowan dropped Citra to the ground as the crowd drew a collective gasp. Cervantes blew his whistle violently. "Illegal move! Illegal move!" Cervantes shouted just as Rowan knew he would. "Disqualification!" The gathering of Scythes began to roar. Some were furious at Cervantes, others were spouting vitriol at Rowan for what he'd done. Rowan stood stoic, letting no emotions show. He forced himself to look down at Citra's body. Her head was twisted practically backward. Her eyes were open, but no longer seeing. She was deadish as deadish could be. He bit down on his tongue until it began to bleed. The chamber door swung open and guards raced in, hurrying toward the deadish girl in the middle of the room. The high blade came up to Rowan. "Go back to your scythe," he said, not even trying to hide his disgust. "I'm sure he'll discipline you accordingly." "Yes, Your Excellency." Disqualification. None of them realized that, to Rowan, it was the perfect victory. He watched as the guards picked Citra up and carried her, limp as a sack of potatoes, outside where, no doubt, an ambudrone was already waiting to take her to the nearest revival center. "You'll be fine, Citra. You'll be back with Scythe Curie in no time, but you won't forget what happened today. And I hope you never forgive me." "I fought against the Purge. There are things I've done that I'm not proud of, but I'm very proud that I fought against that."
I can't recall which scythe began that odious campaign to glean only those who were born mortal, but it spread throughout each regional scythedom, a viral idea in a post-viral time. Shouldn't those who were born to expect death be the sole subjects of gleaning? Went the popular wisdom, but it was bigotry masquerading as wisdom, selfishness posing as enlightenment, and not enough scythes argued, because those born into the post-mortal age found mortal borns to be too uncomfortably different in the way they thought and in the way they lived their lives. Let them die with the age that bore them, cried the post-mortal purists in the scythedom. In the end, it was deemed a gross violation of the second commandment, and all those scythes who participated in the purge were severely disciplined. But by then, it was too late to undo what had been done. We lost our ancients. We lost our elders. We lost our living lifeline to the past. There are still mortal borns around, but they hide their age and their history, for fear of being targeted again. Yes, I fought the purge. But the Thunderhead did not. By its own law of non-interference in Scythe affairs, it could do nothing to stop the purge. It's 11:11. Make a wish.
That hurt really bad. Oh my, ouch.
All it could do was bear witness. The Thunder had allowed us to make that costly mistake, leaving the Scythedom to wallow in its own regret to this very day. I often wonder, should the Scythedom run entirely off the rails and decide to glean all of humanity in a grand suicide of global gleaning? Would the Thunderhead break its non-interference law and stop it? Or would it bear witness again as we destroyed ourselves, leaving nothing behind but a living cloud of knowledge, accomplishments, and so-called wisdom? Would the Thunderhead grieve our passing, I wonder? And if so, would it grieve as the child who had lost a parent, or as the parent who could not save a petulant child from its own poor choices? From the Gleaning Journal of Honorable Scythe Curie.
Citra Terranova.
Chapter 28. Hydrogen Bomb Burning in the Heart of the Sun. Hydrogen burning in the heart of the sun.
Citra Terranova,
said a voice both powerful yet gentle.
Citra Terranova, can you hear me? Who's that? Is someone there?
Curious, said the voice. Very curious. Being deadish was a pain in the ass, no question about it. When she was once more pronounced legally alive, she awoke to the unfamiliar but professionally friendly face of a revival nurse checking her vitals. She tried to look around, but her neck was still in a brace.
Welcome back, honey,
the nurse said. The room seemed to spin every time she moved her eyes. It was more than just pain nanites.
She must have had all sorts of numbing, rejuvenating chemicals and microbots inside of her.
How long?
She rasped.
Just 2 days, the nurse said cheerily. Simple spinal severing, nothing too hard for us to handle.
2 days were robbed from her life. 2 days she didn't have to spare.
My family? Sorry, honey, but this was a Scythe matter. They weren't notified.
The nurse patted her head.
You can tell them all about it when you next see them. Now the best thing for you to do is relax. You'll be here one more day, and then you'll be good as new.
Then she offered Citra ice cream. That was the best she'd ever tasted. That evening, Scythe Curie came and filled her in on all she had missed. Rowan had been disqualified and severely reprimanded for his poor sportsmanship.
Are you telling me that because he was disqualified, I won? Unfortunately, no, Scythe Curie said. He was clearly going to beat you. It was decided that both of you lose. We really need to work on your martial arts skills, Citra.
Well, that's just great, Citra said, exasperated for a very different reason than Scythe Curie thought. So now, Rowan and I are both 0 for 2 at Conclave. Scythe Curie sighed.
The third's time the charm, she said. Now it will all come down to how well you do at Winter Conclave. I have faith that you will shine in your final test.
Citra closed her eyes, remembering the look on Rowan's face when he held her in that headlock. There was something cold there, calculating. In that moment, she saw a side of him she had never seen before. It was as if he was looking forward to what he was about to do to her, as if he was going to enjoy it. She was so confused. Did he really plan that move from the beginning? Did he not know he'd be disqualified? Or was disqualification his plan?
What was Rowan like after it happened?
Citra asked Scythe Curie. Did he seem shocked at all about what he had done? Did he kneel down to me? Did he help me carry you out to the ambudrome? Scythe Curie took a moment before she answered. Then she finally said,
He just stood there, Citra. His face was like stone, defiant and as unrepentant as his scythe.
Citra tried to turn away, but even though the brace was now gone, her neck was too stiff to move.
He is not who you think he is anymore,
Scythe Curie said slowly, so that it would sink in.
No, Citra agreed. He's not. But for the life of her, she had no idea who he was now.
Rowan thought he would receive another brutal beating when he returned to the mansion. That couldn't have been further from the truth. Scythe Goddard was all flamboyance and bright chatter. He called for the butler to bring champagne and glasses for everyone, right there in the foyer, so they could toast Rowan's audacity.
That took more nerve than I thought you had, boy,
Goddard said.
Here, here, seconded Scythe Rand. You can come to my room and break my neck any time.
He didn't just break her neck,
Scythe Goddard pointed out.
He unflinchingly snapped her spine. Everyone heard it. I'm sure it woke up the side sleeping in the back row.
Classic, said Scythe Chomsky, guzzling his champagne down, not waiting for the toast.
It was a powerful statement you made, Scythe Goddard said. It reminded everyone that you are my apprentice, and you are not to be trifled with.
Then he became a little quieter, almost gentle.
I know you had feelings for that girl, yet you did what needed to be done, and more.
I was disqualified, Rowan reminded them.
Officially, yes, Goddard agreed, but you gained the admiration of quite a few important Scythes.
And made enemies of others, Volta pointed out.
Nothing wrong with drawing a line in the sand, Goddard responded. It takes a strong man to do that, the kind of man I'm happy to raise a glass to.
Rowan looked up to see Esme sitting on top of the grand staircase watching them. He wondered if she knew what he had done, and the thought that she might made him feel ashamed.
To Rowan,
said Scythe Goddard, holding his glass high.
The scourge of the stiff-necked, and the shatterer of spines.
It was the most bitter glass Rowan had ever had to swallow.
And now, said Goddard, I do believe a party is in order.
party that followed the Harvest Conclave was one for the record books, and no one was immune to Goddard's contagious energy. Even before the guests started to arrive and the first of 5 DJs cranked up the music, Goddard threw his arms wide in the mansion's ornate living room, as if he could reach from wall to wall, and said to no one in particular, "I am in my element, and my element is hydrogen burning in the heart of the sun." It was so outrageous a thing to say, it even made Rowan laugh.
He's so full of crap.
Scythe Ran whispered to Rowan.
But you gotta love it.
As the rooms and the terraces and the pool deck began to fill with partiers, Rowan began to rise from the funk he had been left in after his awful bout with Citra. "I checked for you," Scythe Volta told him. "Citra's conscious has one more day in the revival center. She'll go back home fully recovered. With Scythe Curie, no harm, no foul. Well, plenty of foul, but that's what you wanted, wasn't it?" Rowan didn't answer him. He wondered if anyone else was insightful enough to know why he did that. He hoped not. Then Volta got serious in the midst of the revelry around them. "Don't lose the Scythehood to her, Rowan," he said. "At least not on purpose. If she beats you fair and square, that's one thing, but submitting yourself to her blade because of raging hormones is just plain stupid." Maybe Volta was right. Perhaps he could do his best in their final trial, and if his best outshined Citra's, he would accept the Scythe Ring, and then maybe he would glean himself as his first and only act. Then he'd never be faced with having to glean Citra. It comforted Rowan that he had a way out, even if it was worst-case scenario. The rich and famous arrived by helicopter, by limousine, and by one bizarre but memorable entrance by jetpack. Goddard made a point to introduce Rowan to them all, as if Rowan were a prize worth showing up. "Watch this boy," Goddard told his high-profile guest. "He's going places." Rowan had never felt so valued and validated. It was hard to hate a man who treated him like the meat rather than the lettuce. "This is how life was meant to be lived," Goddard told Rowan as they luxuriated in his open-faced cabana, looking out over the festivities, experiencing all there is to experience, and enjoying the company of others. "Even when some of those others are paid to be here?" Goddard looked out at the crowded pool deck that would have been far less dense and far less beautiful had it not been for the presence of professional party guests. "There's always extras in every production," he told Rowan. "They fill in the gaps and make for pleasant scenery. We wouldn't want everyone to be a celebrity, would we? They'd do nothing but fight." In the pool, a net went up, and dozens gathered for a game of volleyball. "Look around you, Rowan," Goddard said in utter contentment. "Have you ever experienced such good times as these? The commoners love us, not because of the way we glean, but because of the way we live. We need to accept our role as their new royalty." Rowan didn't see himself as royalty, but he was willing to play along, at least today. So he went to the pool and jumped in, declaring himself captain of the
Ready?
team and joining some of
1,
Goddard's loyal subjects
2,
in their game.
3. You lost the
You
game.
just lost the
At
game.
Goddard's parties is that it was very difficult not to have a good time, no matter how hard you tried. And with all these good feelings that abounded,
It's time to drink water. It's time to drink water.
thank you, Classy.
Yep, you lost the game too. I hope you know that.
You lost the game.
Dagnabbit. Dang, you hitting all my buttons. That's messed up, man.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Aspect.
How do
Make
I?
sure
Where's
Emmy
the?
also loses. Oh my goodness.
Where is it?
Zach, Classy stopped streaming, so we had to come annoy you before we left.
No, 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 no.
The pet isn't showing up.
There is no pet. We just hear
There is no
the
pet. No.
How many? Guys, this is supposed to be a reading stream.
Zach, it was imperative that we annoyed you before we left.
I don't think he can hear us.
Oh.
Classy.
Is that
Classy.
is that why he didn't.
I don't know if you've noticed. This isn't Dead
Oh.
by Daylight. Does this look like...
Just leave. Stop the game.
Hold on. Let me kill that guy.
Does this look like Dead by Daylight to you?
He
Okay,
can't
I
hear
can
us.
get the
It's
perk list.
hilarious.
Yeah.
Wait, but we're unmuted on stream,
No
so
balls. And probably
Yeah,
no
it's-
bubbles since the feeds on radiation.
he doesn't know
It's
that
because he
we're-
doesn't have his headphones.
That's so funny. Hi, stream. We can say literally anything, and he'd never know. No. Among Us,
Oh, we
Among
could
Us,
say
Among Us, Among
anything.
Us, Among Us, Among Us. 6769, 6769, 67.
It says that there's a sound going to freaking Oculus, but clearly not. So stop that.
Her mom's Meg again.
Thank you, GLaDOS.
So what puppet are you gonna pick anyway?
Let's see. Eeny, meeny, miny.
Why don't you guys use these during actual DVD streams? Do you know how little these actually get redeemed? And yet here you are. Absolutely flaunting it.
67, 67, 67.
It's time to drink water.
67.
It's time to drink water.
Sit down, stand up, and sit.
You already did that.
Um, 69, 69, 69, 69, 69, 69, 69, 69, 69, 69.
They'll be done eventually. Eventually I'll be free. One day. One day, maybe. Aspect is still naked. Very nice. Guys,
You'll never be free. I'll always find you.
we have 19 pages left to go through. Please. Please. Can we make some progress? Please, guys. Wee. I'll never be free, will I? This is supposed to be an ASMR stream. Like, nice for people to listen to. Pleasant, even. Such a shame that Classy's stream is offline. Wait, Classy!
When the imposter is sus. Bum 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 bum.
Thank you. Why didn't you raid out to anyone? I'm surprised you didn't raid. I forgot. Teehee, I forgot. I forgot. I'd like to go to sleep, but I can't go to sleep until I finish this book, so if you all would kindly lay off the redeems for just a minute. The thing about Scythe Goddard's parties is that it was very difficult not to have a good time, no matter how hard you tried, and with all the good feelings that abounded.
Hurry up, fast, fast, fast. Go faster. You're going too slow. You're taking too long.
You are taking too long. You are taking You're long. It was easy to forget what a ruthless butcher Goddard was. But was he a killer of scythes? Citra hadn't directly accused Goddard, but it was clear that he was her prime suspect. Citra's investigation was troubling, yet, try as he might, Rowan could not find a single instance since he'd been in Goddard's presence where Goddard did anything that was illegal by Scythe law. His interpretations of the commandments might have been stretches, but nothing he did was an actual violation. Even his gleaning rampages were not forbidden by anything but custom and tradition.
The old god despises me because I live and glean with a flair they sorely lack,
Goddard had told Rowan.
They're a crowd of bitter backstabbers, envious that I've found the secret to being a perfect scythe.
Well, perfection was subjective. Rowan clearly wouldn't call the man a perfect scythe, but there was nothing in Goddard's repertoire of malfeasance that would suggest he would murder Faraday. On the third day of this seemingly unending bash, there were 2 unexpected party gates, or at least unexpected to Rowan. The first was High Blade Xenocrates himself.
What is he doing here?
Rowan asked Scythe Chomsky when he saw the High Blade come out of the pool.
Don't ask me, I didn't invite him.
It seemed strange that the High Blade would show up to the party of a highly controversial scythe. He didn't appear comfortable being here at all. He seemed self-conscious and tried to be inconspicuous, but a man of such mighty girth, festooned in gold, was hard not to see. He stood out like a hot air balloon in an otherwise empty field. It was, however, the second guest that shocked Rowan more. He was stripping down to his bathing suit just seconds after getting to the pool deck. It was none other than Rowan's friend, Tiger Salazar, who Rowan hadn't seen since the day he showed him Scythe Faraday's weapons den. Rowan made a beeline to him, pulling him aside behind a topiary hedge. "What the hell are you doing here?" "Hey, Rowan!" Tiger said, with his signature slanted grin. "Good to see you too, man! Oh, you're looking buff. What'd they inject you with?" "Nothing. It's all real, and you didn't answer my question. Why are you here? Do you know how much trouble you could be in if anyone found out you snuck in? This isn't like crashing a school dance." "Take it easy. I'm not crashing anything. I've signed up with Guests Unlimited. I'm a licensed partier now." Tiger had often boasted that to be a professional party guest was his life's ambition, but Rowan had never taken him seriously. "Tiger, this is a really bad idea. Worse than any of your other bad ideas." Then he whispered, "Professional partiers sometimes have to do things you might not be up for. I know, I've seen it." "Dude, you know me. I go where the day takes me." "And your parents are okay with this?" Tiger looked down, his upbeat demeanor suddenly subdued. "My parents surrendered me." "What? Are you kidding?" Tiger shrugged. "One splat too many. They gave up. Now I'm a ward of the Thunderhead." "I'm sorry, Tiger." "Hey, don't be. Believe it or not, the Thunderhead's a better father my father was. I get good advice now, and get asked how my day was by someone who actually seems to care." Just like everything else about the Thunderhead, its parenting skills were indisputable, but being surrendered by his parents had to hurt. "Somehow," noted Rowan, "I don't think the Thunderhead advised you to be a professional party boy." "No, but it can't stop me. It's my choice to make. And anyways, it pays pretty good." He looked around to make sure no one was listening, and leaned in close and whispered, "But you know what pays even better?" Rowan was almost afraid to ask. "What?" "The word on the street is that you've been training with live subjects. That kind of work pays top dollar. Do you think you could put in a word for me? I mean, I go deadish all the time. Might as well get paid for it." Rowan stared at him in disbelief. "Are you nuts? Do you even know what you're saying? My God, what are you on?" "Just my own nanites, man. Just my own nanites." Scythe Volta felt lucky to be in Goddard's inner circle. Most of the time, the youngest of Goddard's 3 junior scythes, he saw himself as the balancing fourth. Chomsky was the brainless brawn, Rand was the animus, the wild force of nature among them. Volta was the sensible one who saw more than he let anyone know. He was the first to see Xenocrates arrive at the party, and watched as he unskillfully tried to avoid encounters. He ended up shaking hands with a number of the other guest scythes, some from regions as far-flung as Pan-Asia and Eurosantica. It was all with such reluctance on Xenocrates' part that Volta knew the man wasn't here entirely by choice. Volta positioned himself near Goddard to see if he could get a bead on exactly what was going on. When Goddard saw the high blade, he stood, an obligatory sign of respect.
Your Excellency! What an honor it has to have you at my little get-together.
Not so little, answered Xenocrates.
Volta! Ordered Goddard. Bring us 2 chairs poolside, so we can be closer to the action.
And although such a task was normally left to the servants, Volta did not complain, because it gave him a perfect excuse to eavesdrop on them. He placed 2 chairs on the flagstone patio by the deep end of the pool.
Closer,
said Goddard, so Volta placed the chairs close enough for the 2 of them to be splashed by anyone choosing to use the diving board. Stay nearby, he told Volta quietly, which is exactly what Volta had intended to do.
Something to eat, Your Excellency?
Volta asked, gesturing to the buffet table just a few yards away.
No, thank you, no, he said.
This, from a man who had a reputation for being quite the gourmand, was telling in and of itself.
Must we meet here? Xenocrates asked. Would you prefer to speak in a quiet room? None of my rooms are quiet today, Goddard said.
Yes, but this is far too public a forum.
Nonsense, this isn't the forum, said Goddard. It's more like Nero's place.
Volta chimed in with a hearty but staged laugh. If he had to play today, he would own the part today.
Well, let's hope it doesn't become the Colosseum, said Xenocrates, a little bit of bite to his words.
Goddard chuckled at the thought.
Believe me, I'd be more than happy to throw a few tonus to the lions.
The partygoer, one of the paid ones, did a perfect triple gainer off the diving board, the splash leaving a streak across the high blade's heavy robe.
Don't you think this ostentatious lifestyle will catch up with you? Xenocrates asked. It can't catch me if I keep moving, Goddard said with a smirk. I'm nearly done with this place. I've been looking at real estate down south.
That's not what I mean, and you know it.
Why so tense, Your Excellency? Said Goddard. I invited you here because I wanted you to see firsthand what a positive thing my parties are doing for the Scythedom. Good public relations all around. You should be throwing grand galas at your own home.
You forget that I live in a log cabin. Goddard narrowed his eyes. Not quite a glare, but close.
Yes, a log cabin perched atop the tallest building in Fulcrum City. At least I'm not a hypocrite, Xenocrates. I don't feign humility.
And then the High Blade said something to Goddard that was a surprise to Volta, although in retrospect it shouldn't have been a surprise at all.
My greatest mistake, said Xenocrates, was choosing you as an apprentice all those years ago.
Let's hope so, said Goddard. I'd hate to think that you've yet to make your greatest mistake.
It was a threat without actually being a threat. Goddard was remarkably good at that.
So tell me, said Goddard, does fortune smile upon my apprentice as it has on yours?
Now Volta's ears pricked up, wondering what fortune Goddard meant. Xenocrates took a deep breath and let it out.
Fortune is smiling. That girl will cease to be an issue within a week. I'm sure of it.
Another diver splashed them. Xenocrates pulled up his hands to shield himself from it, but Goddard didn't flinch in the least. Cease to be an issue. That can mean any number of things. Volta looked around until he spotted Rowan. He seemed to be having a heated discussion with a party boy. Citra ceasing to be an issue would be the best thing for Rowan, as far as Volta was concerned.
Are we done? Now, may I leave?
Just a moment,
said Goddard, and then he turned to call toward the shallow end of the pool.
Esme, come here. There's someone I want you to meet.
The look of terror that came over the High Blade's face was chilling. This was indeed getting more interesting by the minute.
Please, Goddard, no.
What's the harm? Goddard said.
Esme, water wings and all, came trotting along the pool's edge to them.
Yes, Scythe Goddard?
He beckoned to her and she sat on his lap, facing the man in gold.
Esme, do you know who this is?
Scythe?
Not just any Scythe. This is Xenocrates, the High Blade of Midmerica. He's Mr. Big.
Hi, she said. Xenocrates offered a pained nod, not meeting the girl's eye. His discomfort at this encounter radiated like heat. Volta wondered if Goddard had a point or if he was just being cruel.
I think we met before, Esme said, a very long time ago.
Xenocrates said nothing.
Our esteemed friend here is far too uptight, Goddard said. He needs to join the party. Don't you agree, Esme?
Esme shrugged. He should have fun like everyone else.
Wiser words have never been spoken,
said Goddard. Then he reached behind out of Esme's line of sight toward Volta and snapped his fingers. Volta drew in a low, silent breath. He knew what Goddard was asking of him, but Volta was reluctant. Now he regretted being part of it at all.
Maybe you should show your moves on the dance floor, Your Excellency, said Goddard. Then my guests could laugh at you, just the way you made the entire Scythedom laugh at me in Conclave.
Did you think I forgot about that?
Goddard still reached back toward Volta, now wriggling his fingers impatiently, and Volta had no choice but to give him what he wanted. The young Scythe reached into one of the many secret pockets on his yellow robe and pulled out a small dagger, placing the hilt in Goddard's hand. Goddard closed his fingers around it, and ever so gently, ever so inconspicuously, brought the edge of the dagger just an inch from Esme's neck. The girl didn't see it. She didn't know it was there at all. But Xenocrates did. He froze in place, eyed wide, jaw slightly ajar.
I know, said Goddard cheerfully. Why don't you go for a swim?
Please, begged Xenocrates, this is not necessary.
Oh, but I insist.
I don't think he wants to go swimming, said Esme.
But everyone goes swimming at my parties.
Don't do this, begged the High Blade. Goddard's response was to bring the blade even closer to Esme's unsuspecting neck. Now even Volta was sweating. No one had ever been gleaned at one of Goddard's parties, but there was always a first time. Volta knew this was a battle of wills, and the only thing keeping him from intervening and ripping that dagger away from Goddard was knowing who would blink first.
Damn you, Goddard,
said Xenocrates. Then he stood up and threw himself into the pool, gold adornments and all. Rowan heard none of what transpired between Xenocrates and Goddard, but he did see the High Blade hurl himself into the deep end, creating a cannonball splash that drew everyone's attention. Xenocrates went down and didn't come back up.
He sank to the bottom, someone said. It's all that gold.
Rowan had no great love of the High Blade, but he also didn't want to see the man drown. It wasn't like he fell. He had jumped, and if he drowned, trapped in his own golden robe, it would be considered a self-gleaning. Rowan dove into the pool, and so did Tiger, following his lead. They swam to the bottom, where Xenocrates was bubbling out his last bit of air. Rowan grabbed the man's heavy, multi-layered robe, tucking it over his head, and both he and Tiger helped the High Blade up to the surface, where he gasped, coughed, and sputtered. The crowd around them applauded. Now he didn't much look like a High Blade. He was just a fat man in wet, golden underwear.
I guess I must have lost my balance,
he said, trying to be jovial about it and attempting to put a new spin on what had happened. Maybe others believed it, but Rowan had seen him throw himself in. There was no confusing that with an accident. Why on earth would he have done that?
Wait, said Xenocrates. My ring, he said,
looking at his right hand.
I'll get it,
said Tiger, who was now the party boy of the hour, and dove to the bottom to retrieve it. Chomsky had arrived at the scene, and he and Volta reached down from the pool's edge to haul Xenocrates out of the water. It was as humiliating as it could be for the man. He looked like an overstuffed net of fish being hauled onto the deck of a trawler. Goddard wrapped a large towel around the High Blade, uncharacteristically sheepish.
I truly apologize, said Goddard. It never occurred to me that you might actually drown. That wouldn't have been a good thing for anyone.
And then Rowan realized there was only one reason for Xenocrates to hurl himself into the pool. Because Goddard had ordered him to. Which meant that Goddard had a much stronger hold on the High Blade than anyone knew. But how?
Can I go now?
Asked Esme.
Of course you can,
said Goddard, giving her a kiss on the forehead. Then Esme wandered off, searching for playmates among the children of the stars. Tiger surfaced with the ring. Xenocrates grabbed it from him without as much as a thank you, and slipped it on his finger.
I tried to get his robe too, but it's just too heavy, said Tiger. We'll get someone with scuba gear to go down there on a treasure dive, quipped Goddard, although they may claim salvage rights. you quite finished? Said Xenocrates, because I want to leave. Of course, Your Excellency.
Then the High Blade of Midmerica left the pool deck and went back through the house dripping wet, leaving behind whatever dignity he had arrived with.
Damn, I should have kissed his ring when I had the chance, Tiger lamented. Immunity right there in my hands, and I blew it.
Once Xenocrates was gone, Goddard called out to the crowd.
Anyone who uploads pictures of High Blade Xenocrates in his underwear will be gleaned immediately.
And everyone laughed, and then stopped when they realized he was not joking in the least. As the party wrapped up and Scythe Goddard said goodbye to his most important guests, Rowan watched, taking in everything.
So, I'll see you at the next party, right? Tiger said, breaking his focus. Maybe next time they'll assign me earlier, so I get to hang for more than just the last day.
The fact that Tiger was about as deep as the fountain out front was an irritation to Rowan. Funny, but he had never been bothered by Tiger's shallow nature before. Perhaps because Rowan hadn't been much different. Sure, he wasn't the thrill-seeker Tiger was, but in his own way, Rowan glided on the surface of his life. Who could have known that the ice was so treacherously thin? Now he was in a place too deep for Tiger to even understand. Sure, Tiger. Next time. Tiger left with the other professional party people, with whom he seemed to share much more in common now than with Rowan. Rowan wondered if there was anyone from his old life he could relate to anymore. Scythe Goddard passed him standing by the entryway.
If you're practicing to be a neoclassical statue, I could get you a pedestal, he said. Of course, we already have enough statuary around here without you.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. I was just thinking.
Too much of that can be dangerous.
I was just wondering why the High Blade jumped into the pool the way he did.
No, he fell accidentally. He said so himself.
No, I saw it, insisted Rowan. He jumped.
Well, then how should I know? You'll have to ask him. Although I don't think bringing up such an embarrassing moment to the High Blade will work in your favor.
Then he changed the subject.
You seem to be awful friendly with one of the party boys. Should I invite more of them for you next time?
No, it's nothing like that, Rowan said, blushing in spite of himself. He's just a friend from home.
I see. And you invited him?
Rowan shook his head. He signed up without me even knowing. If it was up to me, he wouldn't have been here at all.
Why not? Said Goddard. Your friends are my friends.
Rowan didn't respond to that. He never knew whether Goddard was serious or just baiting him. Rowan's silence just made Goddard laugh.
Lighten up, boy. It was a party, not an inquisition.
He clapped Rowan on the shoulder and sauntered away. If Rowan had any sense, he would have left it at that. But he didn't. People are saying that Scythe Faraday was killed by another Scythe. Goddard stopped in his tracks and slowly turned back to Rowan.
Is that what people are saying?
Rowan took a deep breath and shrugged, trying to make it seem like it was nothing, trying to backpedal, but it was too late for that. Just a rumor.
And you think I might somehow be involved?
Are you? Says Rowan. Scythe Goddard stepped closer, seeming to look through Rowan's facade to that dark, frigid place where he now dwelled.
What are you accusing me of, boy?
Nothing, Your Honor. It's just a question, to clear the air. He tried to return the gaze, looking into Goddard's own cold place, but he found it opaque and unfathomable.
Consider the air cleared,
Goddard said with a sarcastic lightness to his voice.
Look around you, Rowan. Do you think for one instance that I would jeopardize all this by breaking the seventh commandment to rid the world of a washed-up old guard scythe? Faraday gleaned himself because deep down he knew it would be the most meaningful act he had performed in more than 100 years. The time for his kind is over, and he knew it. And if your little girlfriend is trying to make a case for foul play, she'd better think twice before accusing me, because I could glean her whole family the day their immunity expires.
That would constitute malice, Your Honor, said Rowan with polite resolve. You could be charged with breaking the second commandment. For a moment, Goddard looked ready to carve up Rowan there and then, but the fire in his eyes was swallowed by that unfathomable depth.
Always looking out for me, aren't you?
I do my best, Your Honor. Goddard stared at him for a moment more and said, Tomorrow you'll train with pistols against moving targets. You'll render all but one of your subjects dead with a single bullet. Or I will personally, without bias or malice, glean that party boy friend of yours. What? Was I in any way unclear? No, Your Honor, I understand. And the next time you make an accusation, you better be damn sure it's true, and not just insulting. Goddard stormed away, letting his robe swell behind him, like a cape. But before he was out of earshot, he said, Of course, if I did kill Scythe Faraday, I wouldn't be so stupid as to admit it to you. He's just messing with you. Scythe Volta hung out with Rowan that evening in the game room, shooting pool. But I do think you insulting him. I mean, killing another Scythe? That never happens. I think maybe it did. Rowan took a shot and missed the balls completely. His head wasn't in it. He couldn't even remember if he was stripes or solids. I think maybe Citra's messing with you too. Have you ever considered that? Volta took his shot, sinking both a stripe ball and a solid, which didn't help Rowan in knowing what he was going for. I mean, look at you. You're a basket case. She's playing head games with you and you don't even see it. She's not like that, said Rowan, choosing a striped ball and sinking it. Apparently it was the right choice, because Volta let him play on. People change, Rowan, Volta said. Especially an apprentice. Being a Scythe's apprentice is all about change. Why do you think we've given up our names and never used them again? It's because by the time we're ordained, we're completely different people. Professional gleaners instead of candy-ass kids. She's working you like chewing gum. And I broke her neck, reminded Rowan, so I guess we're even. You don't want to be even, you want to go into Winter Conclave with a clear advantage, or at least feeling like you have one. Esme popped in just long enough to say, I play the winner, then left. Best argument for losing ever, grumbled Volta. I should take her on my morning runs, Rowan suggested. She could use the exercise. It might help get her into better shape. True, said Volta, but she comes by her weight naturally. It's genetic. How would you know? And then Rowan got it. It was staring him in the face, but he was too close to see it. No! You're kidding me! Volta shook his head nonchalantly. I have no idea what you're talking about. Xenocrates? It's your shot, said Volta. If it came out that the Highblade had an illegitimate daughter, it would destroy him. He'd be in serious violation. You know it would be even worse, said Volta, if the daughter that no one knew about got herself gleaned. Rowan ran a dozen things through this new lens. It all made sense now. The way Esme was spared at the food court, the way she was treated, what it was Goddard had said, that she was the most important person he'd meet that day, the key to the future. But she won't get gleaned, Rowan said. Not as long as Xenocrates does whatever Goddard says. Like jump in the deep end of a pool. Volta nodded slowly. Among other things. Rowan took his shot and accidentally sunk the 8-ball, ending the game. I win, said Volta. Damn. Now I'll have to play Esme. I am apprenticed to a monster. Scythe Faraday was right. Someone who enjoys killing should never be a Scythe. It goes against everything the Founders wanted. If this is what the Scythedom is turning into, someone has to stop it. But it can't be me. Because I think I'm becoming a monster too. Rowan looked at what he wrote and carefully, quietly tore the page out, crumpled it, and tossed it into the flames of his bedroom fireplace. Goddard always read his journal. As Rowan's mentor, it was his prerogative to do so. It had taken forever for Rowan to learn to write his true thoughts, his true feelings. Now he had to learn to hide them again. It was a matter of survival. So he picked up his pen and wrote a new official entry. Today I killed 12 moving targets using only 12 bullets and saved the life of my friend. Scythe Goddard sure knows how to motivate someone to do their best. There's no denying that. I'm getting better. I'm learning more and more each day, perfecting my mind, my body, and my aim. Scythe Goddard is proud of my progress. Someday I hope I can repay him and give him what he deserves in return for all he's done for me. is it? Thank you to those that are still here. Everyone who can still hear me. Ah, hi, Classy. You all know the drill. Drink some water. Drink some water. Have a very... Drink some water.
It's time to drink water. It's time to drink.
I'm trying, Classy. I'm trying to drink some water, but you keep interrupting me. Stop it! Drink some water. Have a very pleasant time zone. I see you, Aspect.
So what puppet are you gonna pick anyway?
I appreciate you guys tuning in and hanging out for this stream. It means a lot to me. Now, maybe this time, drink some water, have a very pleasant time zone wherever you guys might be in the world. And I will see you all in the next one. Okay? Hopefully, we can play some Dead by Daylight next time. I will have to find my headphones, though. If I can find my headphones, then tomorrow we might play a little bit. Okay? But for now, drink some water, have a very pleasant time zone wherever you might be in the world, and I will see you all in the next one. Later.